All right, so I have 1, 2, 3 layers. We want to have at least 5 mountain range layers for this atmospheric perspective painting, okay? So this time when I'm going to create my layer, I am going to have a little bit of a darker color because each time it's going to be a little bit darker. So I'll mix a little bit of my color here. All right, and I'm going to do that same thing I did before. Switch up your mountain range a little bit. And I actually think I want that to be a smidge darker. So I'm going to add a tiny bit more blue, then some green. Okay, so now we can see that there's a little bit more of a mountain range there, but we got to set that off to the side to let that dry. Now, there's a couple of different things that we can do back with our night sky one. You might like the way that it looks, or maybe you might say, you know what, I need a little bit of a different layer on there still, okay? So if you want to, you could totally do that wet on wet again. I'm gonna get my paper wet by spritzing, and I want it to be just a little bit brighter. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. All right, so now I'm really happy with how that looks. That color has really been brightened up. Now, I will show you how to add some stars to it later, but maybe you wanna use one of those watercolor techniques that we learned about. So I might actually use a little bit of salt here to kind of give a little star texture. I'm not going to use a lot, but just kind of on those areas that the water is kind of pooling up. And then I'm just going to let that sit. We're going to let it dry. And when it's completely dry, we're going to add our finishing details to it. So I'm going to put this one off to the side. Whoop. And this one, it's a little bit wet still, but I think I should be able to show you this next part, the next layer. So I'm going to continue to use my color I have here, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker because as we come forward here, we're kind of almost to our last bit of color. So, if that's too green. So if that ever happens, just take a little water it down. All right, let's try this. There we go, that's better. All right, so I'm going to make another range. Now you can see this one isn't as crisp as the ones before, and that's because the paper's a little bit damp. So I probably should have waited a little bit longer, but for demonstration purposes, this will work. Okay, so now I'm gonna let that dry before I can add the finishing touches, but you can kind of start to see how this is looking very similar, okay?